Okay, hi guys, welcome back to another review. This is going to be an interesting one. This is the Harmonicdyne P.D.1. This is a very interesting concept of an earphone and I really like it. Before we get into that, I'm going to ask you, please, if you're new here, subscribe to the video. It really helps me out. Subscribe to the channel. It really helps me out. And for you, you're going to see a lot of reviews over the next 2 weeks, like a lot of reviews. I have maybe 8 to 12 items that I'm going to try and publish 12, but if I get 8 out, I'm still going to be happy. Some of those ones are going to be the blonde Prometheus. You can see it with this cool little shell design. You have the My Love 4 from the fragrance Zither. You have the Little Dot X headphones, which I'm excited about trying. And I'm also going to be reviewing all 4 new Campfire audio models, plus the 3 Audio Oracle, and I think there's something else, some Kinera earphones are coming in as well, along with, I think I've got another set of the Sony, a few of the big Sony earphones coming in. So if you like that, please subscribe. As I say, it really helps out and it's going to help keep this channel going. In terms of this is the Harmonicdyne P.D.1. It is a very interesting earphone because it is a combination of dynamic driver and planar magnetic drivers. So the way that the industry's been working in the past few years has been, there's a lot of development of hybrid and tribrid and multiple different driver technologies all put into the one classification. You get tribrids, which are typically an EST, an electrostatic tweeter in it, plus some balanced armatures for the mid-range and a dynamic driver for the bass. You also have your standard hybrid configuration, which is balanced armatures in the highs and mids in combination with a dynamic driver. So this one is very different. Now, this features a planar magnetic driver on the inside of it. That's one that's not really been in the scope of hybrids, so to say. And Tin-Hifi released one that's one of my favorite earphones of all time, called the P1. And it had this planar magnetic driver in it, and it had a super natural and super open, super detailed presentation. It was fantastic. For me, it wasn't bass light, but a lot of people said that they needed more bass from it. I think it was tuned absolutely perfectly and used with a good power source. The one folly of the P1 was that it needed something really good and powerful to drive it to its maximum potential. Here with this, I tested it with the Shanling M3, Shanling M6 Pro, the Thonry Honey H1, my O2 amp and DAC, and just out my iPhone 12 Pro Max, and out of the 12 Pro Max was used with the DD Hi-Fi connectors, and also straight out my MacBook. I thought these sounded fantastic, just even listening to a movie or, listening to YouTube songs, which are highly compressed. It sounded fantastic with this. I didn't see too much difference from powering up, like in the way that you saw the P1 being powered up properly. So that said, let's put this aside. Let's have a little look at the box and the accessories first, and yeah, we'll get into the meat of this review. So the box is beautiful. The box it's a cardboard, but it's covered in this papyrus type paper with a beautiful texture. Really nice and classy. Harmonicdyne logo on the outside, not much else. It does have a little paper sleeve on it, and just looks like a really nice presentation. When you open it up for the first time, obviously the earphones are going to be in here, but you can see that the presentation is lovely. You get a little warranty card in here. You get your spare ear tips, and you get the carry case plus the earphones here. The carry case is really nice. It's PU leather with a little button closure system there, somewhere to store your earphones, some spare tips, and it will take both the cables. And that's going to be an important thing about the accessories here, is that down here you will get 2 boxes, and there's actually 2 cables in here. So what's been happening recently is that Dunu and Fio all have their own system for providing users with a balanced cable option and a standard 3.5mm option. They have interchangeable PCs down here. Other companies that are not as big as them are going with multiple cables, and it's really good to see that there are 2 cables in this box. They are fantastic cables as well. They're not just cheap thrown in cables. They are beautifully well made. They feel great. They're high quality. They've got high quality hardware on them, and they look and feel like a premium cable. Not the most premium of all, but if you'd asked me for $100 for this like a few years ago, I would have bitten your arm off. Just with the way the cable market was back then. So the cable that I've got installed on it just now, because the last testing I was doing was just watching some movies on the MacBook, and yeah, this is the 3.5mm cable. Now, curiously, they use a 45-degree adapter plug, which is something you don't see all the time, but you know, it works fine. So 3.5mm adapter, metal, strain relief. It is an octo braid in there. You can see it's 8 braid. And this is important. This is my preference, is an octo braid into a quad braid, for reasons that I'll show you in a second. And you can see it's a quad braid there after the splitter. So you got a metal splitter and a metal cable cinch, very nice. And up the top you get, again, a little metal piece there with the memory wire going into a MMCX connector, which is always my preference over 2-pin connectors. So there's a lot of good going on with this cable. The reason I say, just because you might have picked up on that I prefer an octo braid is I just find that it flows better than a lot of other cables, and it also, these sort of braids tend to cut down on microphonics, which usually isn't an issue with over-the-ear earphones, but some of the corded ones still do present those sort of problems. The other thing I find is when you wind these ones up with an octo braid, it tends to sit beautifully. That is a beautifully performing cable. It remains tangle free, just really good. Solid performing cable, impressive. And the fact that you get 2 of them, the difference being that this one is terminating a 4.4mm balance connector. Both of the cables come with this little cable tie with a little piece of leather and the little brass stud on it, and I just think that's really nice. No idea why they decided to go for the copper and the silver split on this one. I don't believe that it alters the sound too much, so just good performing cables from a technical standpoint. Really nice, well built. So let's get into the actual earphones themselves. Earphones are all metal body, perfect. All metal body, a little dome effect on the outside here with a kind of like a pattern that catches the eye. Quite a large seam running here, but very closely split together, and some venting on the back there. That will be for the dynamic driver possibly, and then another little vent just here. And metal nozzles, very nice, with a lip on it, and metal grate there to protect you from ingress of unwanted nasties into the internal parts of the earphone. Yeah, just really nice with the MMCX connector just sitting there, and nice looking earphone. My only criticism of this is, if you can see here the way that this tapers out, it's quite a thick taper here to here between where my fingers are, and I don't find them the easiest to get seated in my ears. You can get them seated, but for me, I needed to do a bit of tip rolling. I went back to the spin fit tips and then eventually settled on the Sony MH1C tips, which I have a lot of. And yeah, for me, it was just a little bit tough getting a seal at first, and then I changed out the tips, and I didn't seem to have that same sort of problem. They sit with a sort of shallow, medium shallow insertion depth, so they're not super far into your ear canals. Some people will appreciate that. And yeah, very lightweight, and you don't really tend to notice them in your ears. So Into the driver configuration. So the planar magnetic thing just sounded unreal to me when I heard it in an earphone for the first time in the Tin-Hifi P1s. And it's done it again here. This is, for me, this is a special sounding set of earphones. This is unlike other stuff that I've heard in the tuning. It has a massively expansive sound space, just like the P1 had, but this one presents a little bit differently in that I'm hesitant to use that term that some people use where they say like, oh, it sounds like a headphone, but to me this sounds like a headphone. This appears to me like the sound is coming from outside my ear in the way that a headphone with a dynamic driver or something has, or planar headphone has. It doesn't sound like this is seated inside my ear canal. It's a very wide open spacious presentation. The tuning is very natural, but there's quite an emphasis on the bass. So if you don't like bass, I would stay away from these. These hit hard with the bass. It's not the fastest, most attacking bass that I've heard, but in terms of quantity and resonance and decay of the bass, the way it reverberates is fantastic, and surprisingly there's no bleed into the mid-range. It's just quite a strong bass performance. It doesn't overwhelm the lows. But when these need to go into sub-bass territory, these can go deep, and it sounds fantastic. Like listening to this with some sort of EDM like Tiesto and Steve Aoki and stuff like that, it just, the balance of those crisp details and fast like uppers and spacious highs used in combination with a bass that can really like come in and slam and not overwhelm but give you that impact, combined with it sounding like it's coming from outside your ears, it's a special sounding earphone. It really is a special sounding earphone. Some people are going to say that it's too much bass for them. I think that if you think this is too much bass, buy the P1. The P1 does not have a bass problem. The P1 sounds fantastic with the bass for me in terms of texture, detail and stuff. It just lacks that like super deep sub bass. This can go sub bass deep, but at the same time when you're listening to, I don't know, something like Rodrigo and Gabriella, like something like Tamakun or something like that, the bass sits back and it comes in when it's needed and when they're using the weightier strings, but the combination of the detail and the natural presentation of the mid-range comes across really strong and like becomes the forefront. So there's a lot of earphones where bass becomes prominent and it's kind of at the forefront of the sound all the time. This, when it needs to, sits back, and the detail is so strong, the detail retrieval on it, plus the smooth natural presentation and the weight that it carries, especially in vocals. Male vocals sound very, very good with this. And then you've got the characteristic like fast speed. Like if you're going to listen to metal, which it doesn't have a lot of real sub bass. If you're listening to metal, there's a lot of speed in this driver. It's fast and it's very, very clear. The highs are, one or two times I caught them like being like slightly on the not sibilant side, but like they're up there with the peaky side. But most of the time they're just spacious and open sounding. They sound very crisp, clear, and they pair beautifully in creating that open, wide soundstage. I would say that there was just a couple of times, but this was on poorly mastered tracks, like listening through YouTube. So if you're listening through YouTube, you're going to have problems with like compression and stuff like that, where the files are not optimized. And that was where I noted like that there was a couple of little like treble spikes, but when using with something like this, the M6 Pro, I had absolutely no issues at all. The overall feeling that I got out of this is just, it's a open, spacious, natural sounding earphone, and the bass sounds very realistic, and when you need it to, it's going to hit hard. So yeah, detail retrieval, imaging, that sort of thing, all very, very, very good for the price point. Am I going to say that it goes above its price point? Probably slightly. This is $379 or so RRP, and I think it's worth about the money. I think it's maybe like, you know, up to $400. Very, very good. Even $450, because I would take this over the Dunu EST, which is about $450 or so. But getting higher, you're going to be getting into the Theaudio tribrids, like the Oracle and Monarch, those sort of earphones. And I think that's when it starts to lose out in overall fidelity. But as for the price, I think what you're getting is an excellent package with two cables, two really high quality cables, good set of accessories, well-built earphones, not the most stunning in class, they're just a good looking set of earphones, they're not jaw-droppingly beautiful, but very well made, very well put together, with a really, really interesting sound that I've not really seen on the market yet. I really like these earphones. I'm going to be listening to these a lot, and I think these are going to be one of the reference earphones for my sub $400 comparisons going out. So if you like that, I'm going to put the links, of course it's going to be affiliate links, in the description below, full disclosure. I'm going to put the links to that on Amazon, if they're on Amazon. I'm not sure if they're on Amazon yet. If not, I will find like Linsol or Hi-Fi Go, or somebody will have these. But yeah, these are absolute banging earphones. Like, really, really like them. So that's it for another review. Remember to subscribe, please, and check out all these reviews that are coming out in the future. And if you want some comparisons done, if you want me to compare this between other earphones I've done in the past few weeks, by all means get in touch and say I want this compared with something else, and I'll do direct comparison videos for you. So thanks for watching, and I'll catch you on the next one.